Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Advance, the absolute best place for you to improve your English skills and your life at the same time. I am your host, Jessica, and I am so incredibly happy to be here with you today for another special episode. We have a very powerful topic to discuss, one that I truly believe can change the trajectory of your future if you listen closely and apply what we talk about today. The title of our episode is, "This Video Will Change Your Life." And I know that might sound like a big promise, but by the time we finish here, you will understand exactly why I chose those words. We are going to talk about how you can transform your life, not by doing one huge, impossible thing, but by making small, manageable shifts that compound over time to create massive success. And we are going to do it all while learning beautiful, natural English together. So get comfortable. Maybe grab a cup of tea or coffee, turn up the volume a little bit, and let's dive right into this journey of learning and growing together. Have you ever looked at someone who is successful and wondered how they got there? I used to do this all the time. I would see people speaking English fluently, or people who were successful in their careers, or people who seemed to be incredibly happy and healthy. And I would think to myself, what is their secret? Do they have some kind of magic power? Are they just luckier than me? It felt like they had something that I didn't. For a long time, I thought that change was something that happened to other people. I thought that to change your life, you had to win the lottery or maybe move to a new country overnight. But then I started learning about how the human mind works and how habits are formed, and I realized something that completely shifted my perspective. I realized that big transformations do not happen overnight. They do not happen with one single giant decision. Instead, real, lasting change happens through tiny, almost invisible actions that we take every single day. This is the secret, and this is what we are going to explore today. We are going to look at why people get stuck, how to use the power of small habits to your advantage, how to master your mindset, and why the environment you live in matters so much. And of course, throughout this entire conversation, I will be introducing you to new vocabulary and expressions that you can use to describe these ideas in your own life. Let's start by talking about why so many of us feel stuck. I think we have all been there. You know you want to improve your English. You know you want to get in better shape. You know you want to learn a new skill or get a better job. But somehow, days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and you are in exactly the same place as you were before. Why does this happen? Why is change so difficult? Well, there are a few very common reasons for this, and the first one is fear. Specifically, the fear of failure. Many of us ask ourselves, what if I try and I fail? What if I start speaking English and people laugh at me? What if I start a new project and it doesn't work out? This fear is paralyzing. It stops us before we even begin. But let me ask you a different question. What if you try and you succeed? Every single person who is successful today has failed many times in the past. The difference between them and the people who are stuck is not that they never fail. It is that they kept going even when they failed. They understood that failure is not the opposite of success. It is actually part of success. When you make a mistake in English, for example, that mistake is a lesson. It is showing you what you need to work on. If you never make a mistake, you are probably not challenging yourself enough. So we need to let go of this fear of failure and embrace mistakes as the best learning opportunities we have. Another reason people feel stuck is a lack of direction. I hear this often from students. They say, Jessica, I want to be fluent in English, but I don't know where to start. There is so much to learn, so many words, so many grammar rules, that they feel overwhelmed. And when you feel overwhelmed, it is very easy to do nothing. You think you need a perfect plan before you can take action. You think you need to have the perfect textbook or the perfect schedule. But the truth is, you do not need a perfect plan. You just need a direction. You just need to take one small step. It is like walking in a dark room. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to see the next step in front of you. Once you take that step, the next step becomes visible. So stop waiting for the perfect plan. It does not exist. Just start with what you have, right where you are. This leads me to the third reason people stay stuck, and that is negative self-talk. This is a big one. I hear students say things like, I am just not good at languages, or I will never be fluent, or I am too old to learn. These thoughts are like poison. They stop your progress before it even begins because your brain believes what you tell it. If you tell yourself you cannot do it, your brain will look for evidence to prove that you are right. But if you change your inner dialogue, if you start saying things like, I am improving every day, or I can do hard things, your brain will start to believe that instead. Your words have power, so choose them carefully. Finally, one of the biggest traps I see is waiting for motivation. How many times have you said, I will start studying English seriously when I feel more motivated? I will go to the gym when I feel like it. But here is a secret that changed my life, and I want you to listen closely to this. Motivation does not come before action. Motivation comes after action. You are not going to wake up one day and suddenly feel like doing difficult things. You have to take action first, even if you don't feel like it, and the feeling of motivation will follow. For example, maybe you don't feel like listening to this podcast right now. Maybe you are tired, but you pressed play anyway. And as you listen and as you learn, you start to feel engaged. You start to feel motivated to keep going. The action created the motivation, not the other way around. So stop waiting for the perfect feeling. Just take the action, and the feelings will catch up. Now that we understand what holds us back, let's talk about how to move forward. How do we actually create change? The answer lies in small daily improvements. There is a famous concept called the 1% rule, and it is incredibly powerful. The idea is that if you improve by just 1% every single day, by the end of 1 year, you will be 37 times better than you are now. Think about that. Just 1%. It seems so small. It almost seems insignificant. If you are learning English, 1% improvement might mean learning just one new word today. It might mean listening to a podcast for 5 minutes. It might mean writing one journal entry. It doesn't need to be a huge effort. But these small efforts compound over time. It is like saving money in a bank account. You put in a small amount, and over time, the interest grows, and suddenly you have a lot of money. Your habits work the same way. When you repeat a small action over and over, it compounds, and it leads to massive results. I have a friend who wanted to get fit. He didn't start by running a marathon. He started by walking for just 10 minutes a day. That was it. Some days he didn't want to go, but he told himself, just 10 minutes. Over time, 10 minutes became 20 minutes, and 20 minutes became running. Now he runs marathons, but it all started with that tiny 1% decision to walk for 10 minutes. You can apply this exact same principle to your English learning. Do not try to study for 5 hours today and then 0 hours tomorrow. Just study for 15 minutes every single day. Consistency is more important than intensity. A small stream of water cutting through a rock is not because of its power, but because of its persistence. Keep showing up, keep taking those small steps, and you will be amazed at where you end up. This brings us to the power of habits. Habits are the invisible architecture of our daily lives. There's a wonderful book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and in it, he talks about how habits shape our identity. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. If your goal is to speak English fluently, but your system is to watch TV in your native language every night, you will not reach your goal. You need to change your system. You need to build habits that support the person you want to become. For example, if you want to be an English speaker, you need the identity of someone who speaks English. You tell yourself, I am the type of person who learns English every day. When you change your identity, the habits become easier. It is not something you have to force yourself to do. It is just something you do because it is who you are. So think about the small habits you can install. Maybe it is listening to this podcast every morning while you have breakfast. Maybe it is changing the language on your phone to English. Maybe it is reading one page of a book in English before bed. These are small changes, but they redefine who you are over time. You are building a new identity, one small habit at a time. And I want to share a real-life example with you because I know sometimes it feels like these things only work for other people. I knew a student named Maria. Maria felt like she would never speak English. She had been studying in school for years but still couldn't hold a conversation. She was frustrated. She decided to stop trying to do big, intense study sessions. Instead, she decided to listen to English podcasts for 20 minutes while she was cooking dinner every night. She didn't sit down to study, she just listened. At first, she understood very little, but she kept doing it. She didn't stress about it, she just played the audio in the background. After a few months, she realized she was understanding more and more. Then she started speaking to herself in the kitchen while she cooked. Just simple sentences. A year later, she got a job that required her to speak English with international clients. She wasn't perfect, but she was fluent enough to do the job, and she got better every day. She didn't use a magic trick. She just used the power of small, consistent habits. So, if you are listening and wondering where to start, just pick one small habit today. Just one. Commit to doing it for the next 30 days and see what happens. While taking action and building habits is absolutely essential, there is something even more fundamental that determines our success, and that is our mindset. Our mindset is the lens through which we view the world. There is a very important concept in psychology called the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. This concept was developed by a psychologist named Carol Dweck. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe that your talents and intelligence are fixed traits. You think, I am just not good at English, or I am not a math person. You believe that no matter how hard you try, you cannot really change your basic ability. This mindset is dangerous because it makes you avoid challenges. If you fail, you think it proves you are not good enough, so you stop trying. On the other hand, if you have a growth mindset, you believe that your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. You believe that you can improve. When you have a growth mindset and you face a challenge, you don't think, "Oh no, I can't do this." You think, "I can't do this yet." Adding that one small word, "yet," to the end of the sentence changes everything. It tells your brain that learning is possible. So which mindset do you have? If you catch yourself saying, "I can't do this," stop and correct yourself. Say, "I can't do this yet, but I am working on it." This simple shift changes your brain's approach to learning. It makes you more resilient. It makes you willing to embrace challenges because you see them as opportunities to grow, not as threats to your identity. And there is another fascinating aspect of mindset that relates directly to how our brains work. Have you ever heard of the reticular activating system, or RAS? It sounds like a very complicated medical term, but it is actually quite simple to understand. Your brain is bombarded with millions of pieces of information every second. You see colors, you hear sounds, you feel textures. You cannot possibly pay attention to all of it, so your brain has a filter. This filter is the RAS. Its job is to let in the information that matches what you are focusing on and block out everything else. This is why when you decide to buy a certain car, say a red Toyota, suddenly you see red Toyotas everywhere. They were always there, but your brain was filtering them out because they weren't important to you. Now that they are important, your RAS highlights them. The same is true for learning English and for your goals in life. If you keep telling yourself, "English is so hard, I hate learning it," your RS will scan the world for evidence that English is hard and annoying. You will notice the confusing grammar rules and the words you can't remember. But if you change your focus and say, "I love discovering new ways to express myself in English," your RAS will start to show you opportunities to learn. You will notice English words on street signs. You will understand phrases in movies. You will find chances to practice. This is why reprogramming your mind is so powerful. You are literally changing what your brain pays attention to. So be careful what you focus on, because your brain is listening, and it will show you more of it. So how do we reprogram our minds? There are 3 great ways to do this, and they are affirmations, visualization, and gratitude. Let's talk about affirmations first. Affirmations are positive statements that you say to yourself to challenge and overcome self-sabotaging and negative thoughts. You might feel a little silly doing this at first, but it works. You can stand in front of a mirror and say things like, "I am getting better at English every day," or "I am a confident speaker." By repeating these phrases, you are rewiring your neural pathways. You are replacing the old negative pathways with new positive ones. The second method is visualization. This is when you close your eyes and imagine yourself succeeding. You visualize yourself speaking English fluently and confidently with a native speaker. You visualize the scene in detail. You see the room, you hear the words coming out of your mouth clearly, and you feel the pride and happiness of that moment. When you visualize, your brain releases chemicals that make you feel like the event is actually happening. It builds confidence and tricks your brain into believing that success is possible. The third method is the practice of gratitude. This is a game changer. Every day, take a few minutes to write down or think about 3 things you are grateful for. They can be small things, like a delicious cup of coffee, or big things, like your health. When you focus on what is going well, you train your brain to see opportunities instead of obstacles. You shift your mood from one of lack to one of abundance. This positive state is the best state for learning. When you are stressed or negative, your brain actually blocks higher-level thinking. But when you are positive and grateful, your brain is open and ready to absorb new information. So combine affirmations, visualization, and gratitude to create a mindset that supports your success. Now let's move on to something that holds so many people back, and I have struggled with this too, and that is waiting for the right moment to start. We often think that we need to be completely ready before we take action. We think we need to know all the grammar before we speak. We think we need to have the perfect workout clothes before we go to the gym. But here is the truth, and please burn this into your mind. You will never feel fully ready. There is no perfect moment. The perfect moment is right now. We often think that we need confidence before we take action. We think, once I feel confident, I will start speaking English. But actually, the opposite is true. Progress comes before confidence. When I was learning my second language, I hesitated to start speaking for a long time because I felt like I wasn't ready. I kept thinking, what if I make mistakes? What if people judge me? I was waiting for the fear to go away, but the fear didn't go away while I was sitting on the sidelines. It only went away when I opened my mouth and started speaking. And you know what happened? I made mistakes. I made a lot of them. But each conversation, even the ones full of errors, built my confidence. I realized that the world didn't end when I made a mistake. In fact, people were usually kind and helpful. I wasn't perfect, but I was improving. And that improvement gave me the confidence to keep going. There is a concept I love that says, done is better than perfect. This is so important for English learners. Too many people delay action because they want everything to be just right. They want to speak without any accent. They want to write with perfect grammar. But if you wait for perfection, you will never get started. Perfection is an impossible standard. It is a trap. Imperfect action is always better than no action. If you wait until you can write a perfect essay, you will never write anything. But if you write a bad essay today and then a slightly better one next week, eventually you will write a great essay. So give yourself permission to be imperfect. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. Being a beginner is a beautiful place to be because it means you have everything to learn, and every step forward is a victory. So whether it is learning English, starting a new hobby, or making a big life change, just begin. Do not wait for Monday. Do not wait for the new year. Just take one small, imperfect step today. That step will create momentum, and momentum is a powerful force. Once you start moving, it becomes easier to keep moving. Speaking of taking action and creating a supportive environment, have you ever noticed how much your surroundings shape your habits and decisions? It is not just about what you do, it is about who and what you surround yourself with. There is a famous saying by Jim Rohn that says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Think about that for a moment. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Are they positive, motivated, and ambitious? Or are they negative, complaining, and stuck in a rut? If you are surrounded by people who complain all the time and who do not believe in personal growth, it is going to be very hard for you to grow. Their negativity will rub off on you. But if you surround yourself with positive, goal-driven individuals, their energy and habits will lift you up. You start to think like they think. You start to act like they act. This is why choosing your circle is so important. I am not saying you have to abandon your friends or family, but you might need to seek out additional people who inspire you. You can do this by following inspirational people online or joining clubs and groups. And this is incredibly easy to do today. You can follow authors, speakers, or English teachers on social media who share positive content. You can join online communities specifically for English learners. There are thousands of groups on platforms like Facebook or Discord where people are cheering each other on. When you are part of a community that values growth, you naturally start improving too. It creates a sense of accountability. You see others working hard, and it motivates you to work hard too. I remember when I was learning, I felt very alone until I joined a study group. Suddenly, I had people to practice with, people to share my struggles with, and people to celebrate my small wins with. That made all the difference. It turned a lonely, difficult process into a fun, social one. The right environment creates momentum, making it easier to grow and stay on track. So look at your environment. Is your phone full of negative news? Is your workspace cluttered and stressful? Try to curate your inputs. Follow pages that teach you English. Fill your room with books that inspire you. Make your physical and digital environment a place that supports the person you want to become. Now let's take this conversation even deeper, because there is so much more to explore when it comes to truly changing your life and mastering English. We talked about the importance of your environment and the people around you, but I want to focus specifically on a modern challenge that affects almost every single one of us, and that is the challenge of focus. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded with notifications, messages, emails, and advertisements. Our phones are always buzzing, and social media is designed to steal our attention. This is a huge problem when you are trying to learn a new skill or change your life, because meaningful progress requires deep focus. There is a concept that I love, and it is called deep work. This term was coined by a professor named Cal Newport, and it simply refers to professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. Now that sounds very academic, but let me break it down into simple English for you. Deep work means focusing on a task without any distractions for a set period of time. It is the opposite of shallow work, which is tasks that you can do while distracted, like answering emails or scrolling through news feeds. When you are studying English, if you are trying to memorize vocabulary while watching TV at the same time, you are doing shallow work. Your brain is not fully engaged, so you won't remember the words very well. But if you put your phone in another room, turn off the TV, and sit down with your notebook for 30 minutes and focus entirely on the lesson, that is deep work. This is where real learning happens. This is where the neural connections in your brain are actually built. So if you feel like you are studying all the time but not improving, it might be because you are not focusing deeply enough. You are not giving your brain the quiet time it needs to process the information. Many people believe that multitasking is a good skill. They think, I can listen to a podcast, check my email, and cook dinner all at the same time. I am so productive. But science tells us that multitasking is a myth. What we are actually doing is called task switching. We are rapidly moving our attention from one thing to another. Every time you switch your attention, your brain uses up energy. It takes time to refocus. So when you constantly switch tasks, you actually become less efficient and more tired. To change your life and learn English effectively, you need to become a single tasker. You need to do one thing at a time with your full attention. When you speak English, just speak. When you listen, just listen. Protect your focus like it is the most valuable thing you own, because it is. If you can master the art of focus, you will be able to learn faster and achieve more than people who are constantly distracted. Let's talk about another crucial element of success, and that is emotional intelligence, or EQ. We often think that intelligence, or IQ, is the most important thing for success. We think being smart and knowing a lot of facts is what makes us successful. And while IQ is important, especially for solving math problems or understanding complex grammar rules, EQ is arguably more important for life in general. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and defuse conflict. Why am I talking about emotions in an English podcast? Because learning a language is an emotional journey. You will feel frustrated when you can't understand a movie. You will feel embarrassed when you make a mistake in front of others. You will feel discouraged when your progress seems slow. If you have low emotional intelligence, you might let these feelings stop you. You might think, I feel stupid, so I quit. But if you have high emotional intelligence, you can recognize that feeling of frustration as a natural part of learning. You can say to yourself, I feel frustrated right now because this is difficult, and that is okay. I am not stupid, I am just learning. You can manage that emotion and keep going. This is a superpower. Developing your EQ helps you stay motivated. It helps you connect with other people. When you speak English with someone, being able to read their emotions, to see if they are confused or interested, helps you communicate better. It is not just about the words you say, it is about the connection you make. So as you learn English, don't forget to practice empathy and patience with yourself and others. Another powerful tool that can change your life and accelerate your learning is the Feynman technique. This is a method of learning named after the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. He was known for being able to explain complex, complicated subjects in very simple, easy-to-understand language. The core idea of this technique is that if you cannot explain a concept simply, you do not understand it well enough. You can use this to master English. When you learn a new word or a new grammar rule, don't just memorize the definition. Try to explain it to someone else as if they were a child. Imagine you are teaching it to a friend who knows nothing about the topic. If you stumble, if you use complicated words, or if you get confused, it means you have a gap in your understanding. You need to go back and study it again. This technique works for two reasons. First, it forces you to simplify. It makes you break complex ideas into small, clear pieces. This is exactly what you need to do to speak fluent English. You don't need to use big, fancy words. You need to use simple words effectively. Second, it is a form of active recall. When you try to teach something, you are pulling information out of your brain rather than just putting it in. This strengthens your memory. So I have a challenge for you. After you finish listening to this podcast, I want you to take one thing you learned, maybe the concept of the 1% rule or the reticular activating system, and try to explain it out loud in English. Record yourself on your phone. Listen to it. Did you explain it simply? If you did, congratulations, you really learned it. If not, listen to this part of the podcast again and try one more time. This is how you go from passively listening to actively mastering the language. We should also talk about the role of failure in more detail because I know so many of you are afraid of it. In school, we are taught that failure is bad. We get a red mark on our paper. We get a low grade. We feel ashamed. But in the real world, failure is actually data. It is information. When a scientist does an experiment and it doesn't work, they don't cry and say they are a bad person. They say, "Interesting, that didn't work. Why? What can I change for the next time?" They use the failure to adjust their approach. You need to treat your English learning the same way. If you try to speak to a native speaker and they don't understand you, that is not a failure. That is data. It tells you that you need to adjust your pronunciation or your vocabulary. If you write an email and you make a grammar mistake, that is just feedback. It shows you what you still need to practice. I want to share a story about a student named Thomas. Thomas was terrified of speaking. He refused to open his mouth in class because he didn't want to make mistakes. He stayed silent for months. His English wasn't improving because he wasn't using it. One day, he decided to change his mindset. He decided to treat every conversation as an experiment. He set a goal to make 5 mistakes a day. Yes, you heard that right. He wanted to make mistakes. By setting this goal, he took the pressure off himself. If he made a mistake, he succeeded in his goal. This made him brave. He started speaking more. He made mistakes, but he also learned from them immediately. Within 6 months, he was the most improved student in the class. He changed his relationship with failure. He stopped seeing it as an enemy and started seeing it as a teacher. I encourage you to do the same. Do not aim for perfection. Aim for progress. And remember that mistakes are the tuition you pay for success. Now let's look at the concept of resilience. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It is toughness. Life is unpredictable. You will have bad days. You will have days where you are too tired to study. You will have days where you feel like you are forgetting everything you learned. This is normal. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from those bad days. It is not about never falling down. It is about how fast you get back up. Think of a bamboo tree. In a storm, the bamboo bends. It doesn't break like a rigid oak tree. It flexes. It goes with the wind. And when the storm passes, it stands up straight again. You need to be like the bamboo. If you miss a day of studying, don't say, "Oh, well, I failed, I might as well give up." That is the rigid oak tree breaking. Instead, say, "I missed a day, that's okay. I am human. I will study for 10 minutes today and get back on track." That is resilience. Be gentle with yourself, but be firm about getting back on track. Building resilience is also connected to your physical health. I cannot stress this enough. Your brain is part of your body. If you do not take care of your body, your brain will not work well. If you are sleep deprived, if you eat junk food all the time, and if you never exercise, you will not have the energy to learn or to change your life. It is that simple. Sleep is when your brain processes everything you learn during the day. If you cut your sleep short to study more, you are actually hurting your progress. You need to prioritize sleep. You need to move your body. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain. It reduces stress. It improves your mood. When you feel good physically, you feel good mentally, and learning becomes easier. So part of changing your life might mean going to bed 30 minutes earlier. It might mean taking a walk every day. These are not separate from your English learning. They are part of the foundation that supports it. Let's move on to a practical strategy for setting goals. We talked about the 1% rule, but you also need a clear destination. You need to know where you are going. However, many people set goals that are too vague. They say, "I want to be good at English." What does good mean? It is hard to achieve a vague goal because you don't know when you have reached it. Instead, I want you to set SMART goals. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This is a fantastic framework to use for your English learning and your life. Let's break it down. Specific means your goal is clear. Instead of, "I want to be good at English," a specific goal is, "I want to be able to order food at a restaurant without help." Measurable means you can track it. "I want to learn 5 new words every day." That is measurable. You know if you did it or not. Achievable means it is realistic. If you have never studied English before, saying "I want to be fluent in 1 month" is not achievable. It is just going to make you frustrated. Set a goal that challenges you but is possible with effort. Relevant means the goal matters to you. Why are you learning this? Is it for a job? Is it for travel? If the goal is important to you personally, you will be more motivated to reach it. Finally, time-bound means there is a deadline. I will learn these 50 words by next Friday. Without a deadline, there is no urgency. We tend to procrastinate on things that have no deadline. So take a moment right now. Think of one goal you have for your English. Is it SMART? If not, adjust it. Make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Writing this down is a powerful act of commitment. Another aspect of changing your life is learning to manage your time effectively. We all have the same 24 hours. The difference between successful people and people who are stuck is often how they use those hours. There's a technique called time blocking that can be incredibly helpful. This means you divide your day into blocks of time, and each block is dedicated to accomplishing a specific task. For example, from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. is your English listening block. During that time, you do nothing else. No email, no cooking, just listening. Then from 8 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. is your reading block. When you time block, you are not just hoping to find time for English, you are making time for it. You are scheduling it like an important appointment. If a boss scheduled a meeting with you for 7 a.m., you would be there, right? Treat your English learning with the same respect. Schedule it, protect that time. This stops other people's priorities from taking over your day. We also need to talk about the concept of scarcity versus abundance. This is a mindset shift that can change how you view the world and your opportunities. A scarcity mindset is the feeling that there is never enough. There's not enough money, not enough time, not enough success. It leads to fear and anxiety. You might think, if I help someone else learn English, there will be fewer opportunities for me. This is a scarcity mindset. An abundance mindset is the belief that there are plenty of resources and opportunities for everyone. If you help someone else, you don't lose anything. In fact, you often gain. When you have an abundance mindset, you are more willing to share, to collaborate, and to take risks because you believe that good things are coming your way. In terms of learning English, a scarcity mindset makes you afraid to speak because you think you will lose face. An abundance mindset makes you excited to speak because you see every conversation as an opportunity to gain something, even if it is just experience. Choose abundance. believe that the world is full of possibilities for those who are willing to work for them. Let's discuss the power of curiosity. Children learn languages incredibly fast. Why? Because they are not afraid of mistakes, but also because they are endlessly curious. They ask why. They explore. They play. As adults, we often lose this curiosity. We just want to know the answer so we can pass the test. But curiosity is the fuel of learning. If you can become curious about English, you will learn much faster. Don't just memorize a word. Ask yourself, where does this word come from? What are other words that sound like this? How do native speakers actually use this in real life, not just in the textbook? Get curious about the culture behind the language. Watch movies not just to learn words, but to understand how people think. Read books to experience different stories. When you are curious, learning stops feeling like work and starts feeling like an adventure. You are a detective looking for clues. You are an explorer discovering a new world. This shift in attitude can make the difficult parts of learning enjoyable. I also want to touch on the importance of finding your why. This is your core motivation. Why are you doing this? Why are you listening to this podcast? Why do you want to change your life? If your reason is shallow, like I want to pass a test, you might stop studying once the test is over. But if your why is deep, like I want to be able to speak to my grandchildren in English, or I want to get a promotion so I can support my family, or I want to travel the world and meet new people, then you will have the fuel to keep going when things get hard. When you are tired and you don't want to study, you remind yourself of your why. You connect the small, boring task to the big, beautiful dream. Write down your why. Put it somewhere you can see it. Let it drive you. As we continue to explore these ideas, I want to introduce a few more advanced vocabulary words that fit perfectly with what we are discussing. These words will help you express these complex ideas more clearly. The first word is priority. We often say we have many priorities, but the word actually comes from the word prior, which means before. Technically, you can only have one priority at a time, the thing that comes before everything else. You can say, my priority right now is improving my listening skills. Everything else comes after that. Another great word is consistency, which we mentioned, but let's look at a synonym, perseverance. Perseverance is persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. It is a long-term view. You might say, learning a language takes perseverance. It is not a sprint, it is a marathon. We also talked about distraction. The opposite of distraction is focus, but another word for focusing your efforts is prioritization. This is the action of arranging items in order of importance. You practice prioritization when you decide to study English instead of watching TV. Let's also look at the word resilience again, but think about its verb form, to resilience. It is not commonly used, so stick to resilience or resilient. You can say, you must be resilient to overcome challenges. And finally, let's look at the word perspective. Perspective is a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something, a point of view. Changing your perspective can change your life. Instead of seeing a problem, you see a challenge. You can say, from my perspective, learning English is an opportunity, not a burden. Try using these words in your daily thoughts or when you practice speaking. They will make you sound more sophisticated and precise. I want to circle back to the idea of community because it is so vital. Changing your life is hard, and doing it alone is even harder. We talked about the 5 people you spend time with, but you also need to find mentors. A mentor is someone who is where you want to be. They have already walked the path. They can guide you. They can show you the pitfalls to avoid. You don't necessarily have to know them personally. You can have virtual mentors through books, podcasts, and videos. I am trying to be a mentor for you right now through this microphone, but also look for people in your life. Is there someone who speaks English well? Ask them for advice. Is there someone who is very disciplined? Ask them how they do it. Most people are flattered to be asked for help. They want to share their knowledge. Be humble enough to ask and be grateful enough to listen, and in turn, help someone else who is behind you. Teaching someone else, as we discussed with the Feynman technique, is the best way to solidify your own learning. It creates a cycle of growth. Let's take a moment to talk about the physical act of speaking. Many learners can read and write well, but speaking is the scariest part. This is normal. In your head, you know what you want to say. It sounds perfect. But when it comes out of your mouth, it feels clumsy. Your tongue feels heavy. You forget words. This is because speaking is a motor skill, just like playing the piano or kicking a ball. You have to train your muscles. This is why shadowing is such a powerful technique. Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and you repeat exactly what they say almost at the same time. You mimic their speed, their intonation, and their emotion. This trains your mouth muscles to move in new ways. It connects your ears to your mouth. I want you to try this. Take a short audio clip from this podcast. Listen to a sentence I say. Pause it. Repeat it. Try to match my rhythm. Do this over and over. It might feel strange, but it is one of the fastest ways to improve your pronunciation and fluency. It builds muscle memory. And please remember to celebrate your wins. We are often so focused on how far we have to go that we forget to look back at how far we have come. Did you understand this entire paragraph without looking up a word? That is a win. Did you speak to a stranger in English today? That is a huge win. Celebrate these moments. Give yourself a pat on the back. Tell yourself, I am doing great. Positive reinforcement trains your brain to want to do more. If you only criticize yourself, your brain will associate English with pain and avoidance. But if you celebrate, your brain will associate English with pleasure and achievement. Make learning fun. Reward yourself. Watch a funny video in English after you finish your study session. Eat a piece of chocolate. Do something that makes you happy. You deserve it. Now let's talk about something that is often overlooked in traditional education, but is vital for real-world fluency, and that is understanding the culture behind the language. Language is not just a collection of words and grammar rules. It is a reflection of how people think, how they see the world, and what they value. You cannot truly separate English from the cultures of the countries where it is spoken, whether that is the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or the many other places where English is used. To become an advanced speaker, you need to understand the nuance of the language. Nuance is a very subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound. For example, in some cultures, it is considered polite to be very indirect. In English-speaking cultures, we often value directness, but we also use a lot of politeness markers like, please, thank you, and would you mind? Understanding these cultural nuances helps you avoid awkward situations. It helps you understand humor, which is often the hardest part of a language. Jokes rely on wordplay, cultural references, and timing. If you only study the dictionary, you will never understand the joke. You have to immerse yourself in the culture. Watch comedies. Listen to podcasts where people are chatting casually. Read books that describe daily life. Pay attention to how people greet each other. Do they shake hands? Do they hug? How close do they stand? These are all part of the language. When you understand the culture, the language makes more sense because it has context. It is no longer just random words. It is a communication system used by real people with real feelings and traditions. I also want to talk about the diversity of English. English is a global language and it sounds different everywhere. There is not just one correct way to speak English. There is British English, American English, Australian English, Indian English, and many, many more. As a learner, this can be intimidating, but I want you to see it as an opportunity. You don't need to master every accent. But you should expose yourself to different varieties of English so that your ear becomes flexible. If you only ever listen to one teacher, you might panic when you meet someone from Scotland or from Jamaica who speaks English differently. You need to train your brain to hear the core of the language beneath the accent. Focus on the rhythm and the intonation. Focus on the vocabulary. Even if the pronunciation is different, the words often remain the same. Being a global citizen means being able to communicate with people from all over the world, not just people who speak exactly like your textbook. Embrace the diversity. It makes the language richer and more interesting. Let's discuss the skill of paraphrasing. This is a technique that can save you in so many conversations. Paraphrasing means saying the same thing using different words. It is an essential skill for communication because sometimes you forget a specific word, or the person you are talking to doesn't understand the word you used. If you freeze up because you can't remember the word for umbrella, the conversation dies. But if you can paraphrase, you can say, the thing you use when it rains to keep your head dry. That is paraphrasing. It shows that you are a flexible communicator. It shows that you care about being understood, rather than just showing off vocabulary. You can practice this every day. When you learn a new word, try to explain it without using the word itself. This connects back to the Feynman technique we discussed earlier. It forces you to use simple English to explain complex ideas. This is the mark of a fluent speaker. Fluency is not about knowing thousands of obscure words. It is about being able to communicate your thoughts clearly and effectively, even with limited resources. If you can paraphrase well, you will never be lost for words. You become a problem solver in the middle of a conversation. It gives you confidence because you know that even if you get stuck, you have the tools to get out of it. Another important aspect of changing your life through English is the concept of identity. We touched on this briefly when talking about habits, but let's go deeper. You have an identity right now. You tell yourself a story about who you are. Maybe you tell yourself, I am a shy person. I am not good at public speaking. I am an introvert. These identity tags can limit you. If you identify as someone who is bad at languages, you will subconsciously do things to prove that identity true. You will skip studying. You will be afraid to speak. To change your life, you must change your identity. You don't just need to learn English, you need to become an English speaker. There is a difference. One is something you do, the other is who you are. Start telling yourself a new story. I am a learner. I am a connector. I am someone who loves challenges. When you change your identity, your behavior changes automatically. You don't have to force yourself to study because that is what a learner does. You don't have to force yourself to speak because that is what an English speaker does. This takes time, but it starts with how you talk to yourself. Stop saying, "I am trying to learn English." Say, "I am an English speaker in training." Visualize the future version of yourself who is fluent and confident. What does that person do? How do they stand? How do they dress? Start acting like that person now. This is called acting as if. When you act as if you are already confident, your brain starts to believe it, and soon you won't be acting anymore. I want to encourage you to find joy in the process. We are so focused on the destination, fluency, the new job, the changed life, that we forget to enjoy the journey. Every day that you learn something new is a victory. Every day that you understand a little more than yesterday is a win. Celebrate that. If you are always waiting for the big breakthrough to be happy, you will be unhappy for most of the journey. Happiness is not a destination. It is a manner of traveling. Find the joy in the small moments. The joy of understanding a joke in a movie. The joy of helping a tourist with directions. The joy of thinking in English for a few seconds without trying. These moments are the gold dust of learning. They are the signs that your life is already changing. You are already becoming a new person. As we continue, I want to discuss a very practical skill that will help you in both your personal and professional life, and that is the art of networking. In the context of learning English, networking means building relationships with people who can help you grow. This doesn't have to be in a formal business setting. It can be online. It can be in language exchange groups. Networking is about giving value before you ask for value. It is about being a good person to be around. When you join an English community, don't just say, "Correct my English." Say, "Hello, how are you? I am happy to meet you." Ask people questions about their lives. Be interested. People love interesting people, but they love people who are interested in them even more. By building a network, you create a web of support. You have people to answer your questions. You have people to encourage you when you are down. You might even find opportunities for work or travel through these connections. The world is run by networks. The most successful people are rarely isolated geniuses. They are people who know how to connect with others. English is the language of global networking. By mastering English, you are unlocking the door to a global network of millions of people. Think about that. You can have a conversation with someone in Japan, someone in Brazil, and someone in France, all in English. You can share ideas, stories, and dreams. That is a miracle. Don't take it for granted. Use the language to build bridges, not walls. We also need to address the issue of stress. Learning a new language is stressful. Changing your life is stressful. Stress is the body's reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or response. It is natural. But chronic stress, stress that goes on for a long time, is bad for your brain. It actually kills brain cells and impairs memory. So if you are stressed out about your English, you are literally making it harder to learn. You have to find ways to manage your stress. This goes back to what we said about health. Exercise, sleep, and meditation are scientifically proven to reduce stress. But you can also use English to reduce stress. Instead of seeing English as a source of stress, see it as an escape. Read a book that transports you to another world. Watch a sitcom that makes you laugh. Listen to calming music with English lyrics. Use the language to create a sanctuary for yourself. If your job is stressful, your English learning time should be your fun time. It should be the time you do something for yourself. If you hate your study method, change it. If you hate grammar drills, stop doing them. Watch YouTube videos about a hobby you love, like cooking or fixing cars, but do it in English. You will be learning English, but your focus will be on the topic you love. The stress will melt away because you are enjoying yourself. When you are relaxed, your brain is like a sponge. It absorbs information effortlessly. So please make your English journey a stress-free zone. I want to share a final thought before we wrap up this series. Changing your life is an act of courage. It is looking at yourself and saying, I am not done yet. I can be more. I can do more. It is leaving the comfort zone. The comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. To learn English, you have to step out of that zone. You have to risk looking silly. You have to risk making mistakes. You have to risk failure. But on the other side of that risk is growth. There is a version of you that is confident, that is articulate, that is successful. That version of you is waiting for you to catch up. Every word you learn, every podcast you listen to, every conversation you have is a step toward that future self. Do not compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Do not look at a fluent speaker and think, I will never be there. You don't know their journey. You don't know how many hours they practiced. You only see the result. Focus on your own path. Your journey is unique. Your pace is your own. As long as you are moving forward, you are winning. It does not matter if you are slow. It matters that you do not stop. Remember the story of the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. In the age of instant everything, we have forgotten the power of slow, steady, consistent effort. Be the tortoise. Be the one who keeps plodding along day after day while the hare burns out and gives up. You will get there. I promise you. So, to summarize everything we have discussed in this extended journey together, we talked about the fears that hold us back, the power of small habits, and the 1% rule. We explored the growth mindset, the reticular activating system, and the importance of affirmations and gratitude. We discussed why waiting for the perfect moment is a trap and why your environment matters. We looked at deep work, emotional intelligence, and the Feynman technique. We reframed failure as data and discussed resilience. We covered SMART goals, time blocking, and the abundance mindset. We touched on curiosity, finding your why, and the importance of community. We practiced paraphrasing, redefined our identity, and learned to manage stress. We looked at culture, networking, and the courage to leave the comfort zone. These are not just English tips. These are life tips. They are the building blocks of a successful, fulfilling life. Thank you for sticking with me through this entire session. I know it was a lot to take in, but you are doing a wonderful job. Your dedication to learning English is something to be proud of. Remember, you are not just learning a language, you are opening doors to new opportunities, new cultures, and new connections. You are becoming a citizen of the world. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. I would love to hear from you in the comments about which part of this episode resonated with you the most. What is one small change you are going to make today? Let me know. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with a friend who needs to hear this. You are capable of amazing things. See you next time on English in Advance. Take care.